Okay, this is a demo of how to make the quilt pattern called Ohio Star. Now, Ohio Star looks something like this. So it is a square. It is divided 3 times this way. It is divided 3 times this way. This square will be divided into 4 triangles. This one as well. And just like that. This is the quilt pattern Ohio Star. Now, the materials you'll need is a ruler, 2 different pattern papers, or more if you decide to get more complicated. You will need a pencil, glue stick, scissors, and if it's available, you can use the cutter, only if it's available. So you'll notice that when you have when you get your paper, it is not a square, it is a rectangle. So we have to cut it down. And the way we're going to do that is you're going to take your ruler, measure your short side. I'm going to use inches, and you'll notice it is 5.5 inches on the short side, so 5.5. So that means I need to cut down the long side to 5.5. Now don't mark on your pattern side because that makes it hard to see. Go ahead and turn it over. And you need 2 points at least to draw a straight line. So go ahead, make sure when you start measuring that you start right here where the inches start, not at the end of the ruler. The actual 0 point is right there. Go ahead and count down 5.5 inches and make your first mark. Go to the other side. The further apart the dots, the 2 points, is actually better. Do the same thing on the other side. Now that you have 2 points, you can create a line and just connect them. You can use these lines as a guide to make sure that you're holding your ruler straight. So you see how this lines up with the edge of the paper? If it's like this, it's not lined up. So use that red line there to make sure that you're drawing a straight line. Now once you have your straight line, you can use a pair of scissors to cut it across. I find that small bites with the scissors make a better line than trying to cut. Then you get a jagged line. If you want to use the cutter, you may do that as well. Go ahead and put the paper through. You can put it against the edge to make sure that it is square. But the blade is actually in the center. So if you line it up with this kind of groove in the middle, you'll cut a straight line. Now it's best not to try to cut into the edge. It's best to take it kind of in the middle of the paper, press it down, and cut back and forth. You'll get a better line that way. And now you'll see that I have a square. You'll need to do that with both of your pieces of paper. So go ahead and do that twice. Or if you have more than 2 patterns, you're going to have to do that with every one of them. Okay? Now, in order to make the 9 squares that are part of that pattern, the best way I've found is to go ahead and make kind of an S shape. So take it from the flat side, turn it on its side, looking down at it. I'm making this S shape. See how it looks like the letter S? That way you can get 3 perfect divisions along this side. Just make sure you line everything up. The more time you take, the better. Mr. D's hurrying a little bit, and he shouldn't be. But if you take your time, you should get all three of them the exact same size. Unfold it, and you'll see you have it divided 3 times this way. Now, between this and the second S fold you make, flatten it out a little bit, because if it's too folded, you won't be able to make your S in this direction. So go ahead and do the same thing. See if I can do better this time. And you can adjust them a little bit until they get right. It's not perfect, so I can adjust it a little. There you go. In order for all of your pieces to fit back together, you need to get it as near perfect as possible. Now when I unfold it, you can see I have 3 by 3, and that's 9 squares. So I'm gonna quickly, it's best to try to cut on the white side so you can actually see the lines. Now I'm gonna take little bites out of it and cut it all the way. Do the same again. And take your time. The more time you take, the better it'll be. And once you have it cut in one direction, sometimes you can stack them and get so that you're not trying to cut them one at a time, and you can go ahead and make a cut. So you'll go ahead and do that with both your pieces, and then I've already done that. So you'll see that I have both of my patterns with the 9 squares. Now you can start to decide how you're going to lay it out. I don't like the square. It's not as perfect as it should have been, so I'm going to do something like this. And I might use one here, one here. I want a different one in the center. And go ahead and arrange it. Don't glue it down yet, just arrange it. It should actually be like this. So I'm going to lay it out without gluing it down first. And you can turn these this way. You can play with the direction of the pattern if you want. Now you'll notice that in the original, in the Ohio Star, it was something like this. So now you need to take 4 of those squares and cut them into triangles. And the best way I've found is to take one of the squares and just fold it corner to corner twice. So corner to corner this way, and take more time than I'm doing now. And then corner to corner this way. Unfold it. Don't try to use the cutter with this small of a piece, because it just doesn't work. So I'll take my scissors, I'll cut it corner to corner, following that line, small bites. I'll stack them so I can make one cut. Do the same thing. And you'll have some triangles. Now, I'm going to make some of this a little bit different than the other, so I could glue it here, and I could glue it here. If you wanted, you could go ahead and take that pattern underneath and cut that corner to corner and corner to corner if you wanted to, and rearrange those with another pattern if you wanted. But I would do this every time for these 4 patterns, and that would be my Ohio Star. And I would glue it back together and then start to find my math inside. So I'm going to take all my pieces and I'm going to start to mount it on a piece of black paper. So this is the 3.5 by 5 card where I'll put all the math facts that I find inside of it. At the top you would put fractions in quilt pattern Ohio Star. and then I would start writing the equations that I would find inside of it. Now I put 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 because for one of these, if this square has a value of 1, you'll notice I have this one is 1/4 of that whole, 1/4 of the whole, 1/4 of the whole, and 1/4 of the whole. So that would be one of the equations that I found inside of it. Then I'll put it back together on the top. On black. Arrange it first. Don't glue anything down yet. I'll put all my pieces back together. Make sure everything fits snugly, because it's supposed to be a pattern. You shouldn't see any of the black between the pieces. Get it as nice and snug as you can. If you cut all your pieces perfectly, it should start to fit back together nicely. After you arrange it, then take a piece, apply my glue, and then put it down. Take another piece. Don't take everything off, glue it, and try to put back together. I want you to center it as nicely as possible. This should be a frame of black around it. So it should be a nice square, centered, not against an edge. And then when you're done, write all of your equations you can find inside of it. If this square has a value of 1, what does each triangle have a value of? If the whole square has a value of 1, what is one of these squares? If the whole square has a value of 1, what is the value of one of the small triangles? Try to find all that math inside of it. Okay?